do we want to pivot to some trade deadline talks
Yeah,
here?
definitely some interesting
This was
moves.
the so I've written down all the significant moves, and we can go one by one through them.
Hmm.
McCaffrey's not on the list. We already talked about him, but
Yeah,
uh,
you know,
this was the most hectic. This was like an NBA deadline to me. Like
which was
this,
nice. It was really nice.
I've never remembered something like this in the NFL. It's always like there's a couple on here that's like, oh yeah, you see that, like the Jeff Wilson trade, or stuff like oh yeah, that kind of stuff usually happens around the deadline. But we'll start with this: Roquan Smith to Baltimore for a second and a fifth rounder. Um, what are your thoughts here?
Big move. I think that could actually go down as maybe the best move. If we're not talking about the Christian McCaffrey trade, I think personally, just as a player, it's not going to get better than that from the trades we've seen. Roquan Smith would definitely be the second fiddle, though. And I think that really just shores up the Ravens defense, which hasn't been super good this year. Which normally in years past, it's pretty solid and gives teams problems. And that's not really been the case this year as much. But I think that just shores up a lot of that uncertainty. He can play everything. He plays pass, he can play in, pass rushing and obviously run defense. And if they just give him a contract, I mean, he's gonna be with this team 4 or 5 years. So they might have
I
got the next
think
Ray Lewis.
I think that I wouldn't go that far yet, but
Yeah.
I think that Chicago actually might be my biggest winner of the trade deadline,
Of the overall deadline, agreed, because I don't think
and it has nothing to do
Roquan
with
was
the
gonna.
Claypool trade either. I actually hate that trade.
Yeah, no, it was definitely it was the latter moves of moving on from Roquan Smith because you knew he wasn't coming back.
Getting a fourth rounder
And
out of Robert Quinn as well.
right.
So
Yeah, that
Chicago
was
clearly sees the need to begin to restructure. I don't think Roquan Smith was going to resign. They
no.
see the need to begin to restructure and find some inter. I think they're going to run with Fields. I think that's very evident based off the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah,
He's been playing pretty
Claypool
well.
trade for sure.
So I think that they're stacking up on picks to start to build around him, and then I would assume restructure the defense a little bit as well. If you're going to move Roquan Smith, you're going to have to. So
Yeah,
to get any value out of Robert Quinn at this point, he has like one sack on the year. Like good fourth rounder. That's solid. He's like 33. So I was happy with that. And then I'm indifferent on the Claypool trade. They took the second rounder from Baltimore and basically got Chase Claypool out of it. They got a year and a half of Claypool, so he's got 1 year left, and then this year on his rookie deal, and then you assess from there. From
right.
this, we can talk about it from the Steelers' perspective next, but what's your thought here with Claypool going to Chicago?
Well, this is kind of gonna help us determine a bit more of Justin Fields, how good he really is. I don't think like the Bears offense is dynamically going to get a crazy better, but I do think it really helps them getting Chase Claypool. Granted, I would say it's a bit of an overpay considering he was drafted in the second round. And I mean, the talent is there. The idea that he can be, a solid, he's 6'4", he can block pretty well. He's got really good speed for the size. You're hoping that he's something special, but I think ultimately his value is probably at like a fourth or a fifth, in my opinion. I mean, just granted, like,
I would have liked to see a
um,
third, but I mean,
yeah, like
from what I've
two
heard, there
just is a
were
little high.
so from this perspective though, no other receivers were moved outside of like Kadarius Toney and Calvin Ridley. So no other receivers were moved. The Bears, I don't see the need to make this trade. Honestly, I would have rather than held the second and picked a receiver next year in the second round because
Agreed. Yeah, that was kind
I
of a
think
waste of a
that's a.
pick for them.
But um, I don't hate it either because other teams were involved, and I know the Packers had the exact same offer on the table of a second rounder, and the Steelers just figured that the Bears pick was going to come first.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. I think they overpaid, but they won. They got the guy they wanted. It wasn't even their second round pick that they moved. They still have a second round pick. So, in a sense, they got him for a fifth rounder. Well, they
Yeah,
got, in a sense, they traded Roquan Smith for Claypool and a fifth rounder, which is,
that's solid.
it's 50-50 in my opinion. Yeah, like, I don't know.
Solid.
Um, I think they're the biggest winner just because to me it seems like they're figuring out what they need to do and they're taking steps toward it. Like they clearly have a plan, in my opinion,
Yeah.
at this point.
Well, and if you're gonna lose, like you're losing someone in free agency, it's a
Yeah,
lot better to get
yeah.
compensation
I mean,
for it.
Roquan had
Like
already
whether people
requested a
are,
trade, and
yeah, you could say his value is at like a first or whatnot, but this is what the market was. I'm assuming they just took the best offer on the table, and it was made on like they were probably searching for a trade all season. I mean, this was probably the best offer at the last possible second. So you can say what they want, but I agree with you in the fact that they're committing to this rebuild. They have the most cap room going into this free agency by far. So it's going to be a completely different team next year. And if they tool around Fields correctly, they add some more pieces to that defense. Who knows? But
yeah,
ultimately, it's the Bears, and history is not on their side, if we're going to be frank here.
that is true.
See Allen Robinson, Khalil Mack, etc., etc.
Well, you can go
Um,
back a lot farther.
I could go a lot farther, but I'll keep that talk short. We can move on to the
Yeah,
next moves yeah on the list because there was a couple more that were major in my
yeah.
opinion.
So this is the one that came out of left field to me. I truly do not see the incentive to trade this guy still. TJ
Mm,
Hawkinson to Minnesota for a second and third round pick, and then
yeah,
two more conditional picks. So 4 picks for TJ Hawkinson. I really see no. I love it from Minnesota's perspective. Like Irv Smith just went down. You make an upgrade. Who are they realistically going to draft in those slots? That's going to drastically improve their roster the way that TJ Hawkinson would. Um,
right.
Other than probably defense, but from Minnesota's perspective, I like it. I love it. From Detroit's perspective, I have no idea why they did this.
I actually have a different viewpoint, and you can disagree, but from just my perspective, you could go the route of okay, it's TJ Hawkinson. He's clearly a great tight end that's young. Why you would move on from him? Well, there's no guarantee he's going to resign. I don't know what his contract
So
situation
they just
is.
they just exercised his 5th year option and then traded him
Right. So that means he would have finished out this year and then play
next.
on 1 year next year.
Yeah, next year's the 5th year.
So exactly. It's like that to me is kind of like the Claypool situation. Like I know Claypool is way less talented and less proven, but if you don't think a guy's going to stay with you, move on from him. And I don't know if that's really the case. TJ Hawkinson has been very public about the situation, but I would say getting 4 picks for the Lions, like just where they're at, I don't think
Yeah, I think they're
they're
clearly
they need that
saying we
all to
need
go to their
we
defense.
yeah we
Like
need
they
more.
got to just improve the rest of the roster. They just got to hope that they make the picks worth the value of TJ Hawkinson. I think it's possible. And I also think that Jameson Williams coming back next year to help that passing attack is probably in their mind as well.
It's a good
But,
point too. It's a good
you
point
know,
too.
it's
And from the
it
other perspective, when's Justin Jefferson off his rookie deal? Next year or the year after that, probably. So it's like, I
mm,
think, and Thielen's on a big deal right now. So I think in the back of their head, they're thinking probably going to have to either give Thielen a much smaller deal or move on from him, give that money to Hawkinson, and somehow manufacture a way to pay for Justin Jefferson.
yeah,
In that process, I don't know how they would do that, and I don't know how much cap space they have either. Maybe they've already been doing that, but
right.
um, yeah,
I think it
I,
just
I
made
don't know.
sense for both sides. I do say it was out of left field because this was not talked about, and it seemed like even everybody in the organization liked T.J. Hawkinson, like just from watching Hard Knocks and whatnot. So I was definitely surprised, but I would say the return is, I mean, 4 picks for a tight end is any way you slice that's really good. I
Yeah,
mean,
I would
considering
agree.
like Roquan Smith, I feel like is a better player. and Chicago didn't get anywhere near that return. So that's the only reason why I'm looking at it is
Well,
like,
I just don't
yeah,
understand
it's
why
a
you would do
big.
that in the division though as well.
Yeah, that might have been the best offer. It might have been Minnesota panicking with Irv Smith going down, wanting to go all in on this season, being their 6-1, and
I hope
saying,
that's
"Hey, yeah,
what
let's make an
Minnesota's.
upgrade."
I hope that's what Minnesota's where their
I
heads
think
at.
that's got to be the mindset for them. It has to be. That's the only reason why you give up 4 picks, because if this doesn't work out, you just kind of cost not only yourself some picks, but like you mentioned, they got big contracts coming up, and you're gonna need some of those mid-round picks to fill out roster slots. That's just the business. So we'll see. I mean, granted, we'll see if they
Yeah,
lose to Philly in the conference championship. Like they lost this trade. You could really say that,
yeah.
just
I think it's
depending
a
on how
2 year. I
Hawkinson
think it's a two
performs.
year window with Hawkinson's contract. We'll see. What they're
Oh
able
yeah,
to
if they don't
do.
re-sign him, that's a big whiff.
What they're able to do. I would assume they're going to be able to re-sign him. But then the
Yeah.
question becomes, can they maintain Jefferson and Cook on that offense as well? And that's where you
hmm
know and that's
And
where you
Kirk's
start.
probably gonna be due soon. Like they got a lot of
Yeah,
people to pay.
yeah.
A lot of people.
Next up on
But
the list, though, to move on, is Naheem Hines goes to Buffalo and Zach Moss goes to Indianapolis. This was basically just a clean swap of backup running backs. Buffalo, the Zach Moss, they clearly don't like him. They're looking for a way. I think that they gave um, Indy some picks to take Zach Moss because I think so. I wouldn't. It was a late. It was if it was a day 3 pick.
yeah,
But I don't really have much to say here. Buffalo has not liked Zach Moss. Clearly, they're looking a way to find Devin Singletary some backup. And I don't.
they've been utilizing James Cook too. Like that's why for me, I feel like it's such a lateral move for both sides.
Yeah,
Like it was like the almost to me like the no really win trade of the day. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
you got rid of a guy
No,
you
the
don't
winner. The
use
winner
to.
here is Naheem Hines.
He's
I
out
mean,
from behind Jonathan Taylor, but it's just a matter of
well, I'm just saying
is Buffalo.
he went from Indy to a Super Bowl favorite.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's very true as well.
I mean, hey,
That's probably the biggest thing.
so
But overall, it's like, all right, do what you wish. Colts, they did get a pick. You're saying it was late. I mean, their season's already kind of looking south.
no, they look to be
So
entering a rebuild.
yeah,
Um,
so that pick helps them, no doubt.
so next up, this is probably the second biggest name, second or third, depending on how you feel about Hawkinson. But Chase
Yeah,
Edmonds, a first and a fourth rounder to Denver for Bradley Chubb and a fifth rounder.
aggressive is kind of the word. Um, I don't think Bradley Chubb is worth like he's good, like a first rounder, like you are kind of banking that your team's going like
I
far. It's
think
it's like with
that
the Minnesota
I
situation,
think
like
that Miami is going all in before they have to pay Tua and Jalen Waddle.
yeah, right. It's almost like they're trying to be the Bengals of this year, and it might pan out that way, just the
I
way their
like it
offense
better
is
than
playing.
Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I love it. And hey, if it works out for them, like they get that championship, that first round pick loss is who cares? But
Yeah,
you don't,
I don't
and
know.
they just signed Bradley Chubb to a major extension. Like that's another guy you mentioned the contract's coming up. You also just handicapped yourself a bit with that contract. So we will see. I can't really grade this trade accurately right now. It's just more of a wait and see.
How about from Denver's perspective? I kind of like it. Although I'll say this, the one thing that they got going for them good right now is their defense, and now they're
Yeah,
trading off a core of it. Probably the best. I mean, definitely their best pass rusher. So it's like, why
they
are
can
you?
blame the Russell
Why
Wilson
are?
trade
Why are you? Yeah, but why are you messing up your defense to fix this
because they
offense?
they weren't going to be able to pay him. I think that's the biggest thing. I think they paid Russ, realized, oh no, like we're not gonna be able to pay. We're not. You can't. I don't think they could have came up with that contract the Dolphins gave him. I just don't. And unfortunately for them, this is the consequence of their actions. They're probably gonna have to use that first round either to replace Bradley Chubb or get somebody else on their offense. But either way, I think it is a good move for Denver because they need the pick at this point. It's already kind of looks like a lost season.
Yeah, I think
They're
Chase
probably going to
Edmonds
need a
is
new
a decent
coach.
fit as well.
Yeah, and you trade to use the guy, but at the
They
same time,
clearly,
it's
they
such a crowded
clearly,
backfield.
yeah, but they clearly don't like
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin
They don't.
Gordon, and
No, they don't like
Latavius
him. And
Murray's their next
Latavius
best
Murray's,
option. Like,
yeah. Chase Edmonds could become the lead back, but I think I even saw Hack came out and said that for now, Melvin Gordon and Latavius Murray would be the like starting 1-2 backs, but then Edmonds was the third down guy. And it's like, all right, well, thanks telling people the game plan that everyone kind of
that's
saw.
not
But
true. There's
yeah, I think
they
Edmonds is
they
going to
don't
be
like
used a
Melvin
little bit more
Gordon.
than that.
They don't like Melvin Gordon. They're not re-signing him after this year. I don't know why they re-signed him this year, actually, but
Yeah, that was yeah. Or having Javonte Williams, like it was kind of interesting.
yeah.
I would agree.
So then, to replace what am I saying here? To replace Chase Edmonds, Miami goes and trades for Jeff Wilson by giving him a fifth rounder.
Yeah, which is
I think that's a
I
great.
kind
This
of
is one of my favorite trades here.
right. It's kind of
Honestly,
both. Like the 49ers weren't going to use him. So for them, it's like, yeah, we recoup a pick that
we
I,
gave up
I don't
for
think they gave up.
McCaffrey.
Yeah, like you're getting, something. And Mike McDaniel coached Jeff Wilson. Like if anyone's going to know how to utilize him, it's him. They're again going all in on this season, and all you had to do is get a fifth round pick to definitely get better. Like Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, that's a nice 1-2 punch. Having Tyreek, there's so many guys that can throw in motion.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it makes that offense unique, something that a lot of teams just aren't gonna have film on, and that's why it makes them dangerous. So I'd agree with you. I'd love it. I think it's one of those trades that even if it doesn't work out, they only gave up a fifth. It's not very
yeah,
detrimental to what the Dolphins are trying to
a
do.
fifth for a running back by committee.
Yeah.
Piece. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Great move.
Here's another interesting one. James Robinson to the Jets. I need to look up what they gave up for this.
It was, I believe it was
I believe
not
it was
a
a
lot.
fourth rounder.
Yeah. Like pretty good value for the Jags, considering I'm pretty sure they got him in the 6th round. But I would say that's like a fair assessment of
It's
his
a
value.
conditional third or fourth rounder, basically. So
Yeah, probably depending on how much they utilize him and whatnot. So
yeah,
that's overall, I think that's valid. I mean, he's a solid running back.
I
I could say maybe a 4 or 5, but
I don't know
you
if
know,
I understand it from the Jaguars' perspective. They got value out of him. They upgraded him. He was actually undrafted. He wasn't even a 6th round pick.
oh
And
wow, yeah,
so they got a pick out of this guy who's been really good for them, and they've got their guy in ETN. From the Jets' perspective, they're like reloading for this year to help cover their loss of Brees Hall. But
yeah.
are they considering themselves contenders then? Like, is that where their heads at? Because I don't think that they are in a place where that's what they need to be
Likely,
doing. Like,
right. But
I don't.
at I think 5-3, and I think they're even 5-2 going into last week. They just might be a little delusional up there right now. They might see a lot of teams at 4-4, same record as them, think, hey, we might be able to make a run. And all right, you know what I mean?
I
And
would
again, I
have
don't think they're
waited. I mean, it's only one pick, so it's not that big a
right. It's
deal.
not
And
the
then
end of the world, but
you have him
yeah,
next year as well as a third or second option behind Brees Hall. So I'm very
yeah,
interested to see how that plays out in 2023 because you still do have Michael Carter, who I think is a solid backup running back. So
for sure.
I don't know. This one confused me a little bit from the Jets' perspective, other than filling a need right now. So unless they're going to flip him at the end of the year or flip Michael Carter at the end of the year,
Yeah,
um, I don't see much of a need for a three-headed backfield. Two-headed, I think, is already enough. But especially when you got a guy like Brees Hall, like you want him on the field. So
right.
Fills the need
Yeah,
now. It confuses me. The long, it feels a little short sighted. That's what I'll
no
say.
doubt. Yeah, because next year they're gonna have to make a decision, and ultimately the pick they used on either Michael Carter, James Robinson, that's gonna be lost.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, a little
Final
puzzling.
trade we have to discuss. This is one of probably my second favorite outside of the Jeff Wilson one. Calvin Ridley to Jacksonville for a fifth rounder in 23 and a
Mm,
second rounder in 24.
yeah, very under the radar, and that Jacksonville 24 second rounder is slick. They didn't want to give it up this year because they knew it would be worth something. But next year, because Calvin Ridley will be back,
Could be a
that
third
pick
rounder,
is
basically,
right.
or a
Yeah, it's
late
definitely gonna
second.
fall in value given their
And
projections.
this
So
fills their biggest need as well.
I would agree. It definitely helps them out in the aspect of now you got Kirk, Ridley, Evan Ingram. It's solid units. Could even may improve a bit if you want to in the draft. But
And then ETN.
right, having ETN back
I
there,
mean,
get
they're
a good
starting to
mix of
build
both.
something down in Jacksonville that's
Oh yeah, they just need Trevor
I'm
Lawrence
becoming
to finish in the
yeah.
fourth quarter.
That's really it. That's all that's missing is him to take the
Yeah,
one last step he needs to take.
yeah,
From
soon.
Atlanta's perspective, I like it. If you don't want this guy to play for you again after what happens, and he's not a part of your future, they're in a rebuild. I think he's 27, 28.
Yeah,
Um, just get rid of him. Got decent value out of him. A second and a fifth is not bad. So I like
yeah.
it from
No, I would agree.
both perspectives, but I love it from Jacksonville. Um,
Yeah,
this is a long sighted trade, in my opinion. This is like, okay, we're probably not there this year. This has been our biggest lack so far. Let's see how cheap they'll go for him.
yeah.
I think it's a good deal. And they got it, like you said, in 24. So, yeah,
It's a good
I'm a
move.
fan.